Good morning. Happy Friday, and welcome to our latest session of our Coffee Break Technology series. Glad to have you join us. We've got a great group of attendees this week. We always have a great group of attendees, but we have a large group of attendees this week. So excited to have you join us. And I'm very excited to have a couple gentlemen join me this week from our team. And we'll be talking today about powering IT and strategy, insight and strategy with a virtual CIO. We'll dispel the myths of what a virtual CIO is. We'll talk about how a vCIO is helping our clients and how that can help your business. What kinds of things they can do to help make the right decisions for strategy and long-term technology deployment, and really get focused on the business more so than on the technology. And we'll be able to answer questions as the next 25 minutes or so go. So first of all, I want to do a couple quick introductions. If I can get the slide to change again. My name is Jeff Doetzler. I'm the president of Levity, and super excited again to continue with our Coffee Break and Technology series. About 5 or 6 months ago, 5 months ago, Gordon Flesch Company acquired Information Technology Professionals, or ITP, and the combination of those two organizations we've named Levity, which is a combination of the word elevate and security, profitability, productivity. And we're excited to be bringing our new capabilities and our strong combined team to our clients and future clients. So excited to be joined by Nick Bamboulis, the vCIO and team lead who works primarily out of our Milwaukee region, and David Eichhorn, who's an IT services architect and vCIO, primarily works out of our Madison office. These are two gentlemen that have been with the Gordon Flesch Company and our managed IT program really from the beginning of us getting into managed services, and have been instrumental in us building out the business and really helping to support clients across our two regions. So Nick, David, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you, Jeff. It's great to be here.
Yes, good morning. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you bet. Guys, maybe you could take a spin around kind of your experience and what has gotten you to this point. Nick, maybe you can give it your 20-second background.
Sure. So I've been with the Levity IT, or Gordon Flesch Company, for just about 7 years now in the vCIO role. Prior to coming to GFC, I was in multiple different IT management roles, worked in the aviation industry, worked in the hospitality industry, kind of done everything in my career from being a one-man IT shop all the way up to running a department with my own team of technical staff with multiple locations across the country. And today, I utilize all my years of knowledge and experience to help our clients get to where they need to be in terms of technology and guidance and planning. So I feel like this part of my career has been really exciting. I've really enjoyed working with clients and working with executives to help give them direction and guidance. And it's been a really great ride for me.
Great. David.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. So this is, I think I'm coming up on 18 years next year with Gordon Flesch Company as a whole. The last 8 years of that, I've been with our managed IT services program and the Levity team. So I've really spent the majority of that time working with clients, understanding what makes them tick, where do they want their businesses to go, how technology can be a strategic component for them, so that the investments they're making for technology and the support that they need to run it are producing the most value that it can. Prior to being a vCIO and working with our clients and helping them build technology roadmaps, I was with internal IT management within Gordon Flesch Company and had responsibilities associated with the GFC organization and its IT that operates throughout the Midwest. And prior to that, I've had field engineering experience, as well as other IT service providers that I've worked with throughout Wisconsin and Michigan.
Great. Well, thank you. So a quick reminder, I've got several questions here that I'm going to pepper these guys with, but we'd love to hear from you as well. Within the Zoom management window, there's a Q&A little icon that you can click. And if you post a question there, we will try to get those inserted into the Q&A as we move forward for the next 25 minutes or so. So feel free to ask those or post those at any point, and we'll try to get them asked. So I think most people understand the term or have heard the acronym of a CIO, which is typically part of a C-suite within larger organizations that can afford that level of resource. There's the CEO, the COO, the CRO is a new one, the CMO, lots of C's, and a pretty important strategic position in a lot of organizations. David, I know you were our first vCIO. You were with me when we really started managed IT at Gordon Flesch, and felt like we were doing something a little bit different than the traditional IT provider that, maybe was a value-added reseller, had a bunch of really good engineers that you could call and work with them on a time and materials basis. But we started in the managed services space initially, and the vCIO really, we felt, was a cornerstone of what we were doing differently in the market. So tell us a little bit about when you feel that term became mainstream, and what types and sizes of businesses utilize a vCIO. Why would someone care about that?
Sure. I think that the industry started to see the term vCIO roughly about the time we started to move into the space 8 to 10 years ago. I think it had a few different definitions and different meanings to different people, but what was unique about the way we approached it was we had a dedicated team. Our vCIOs were there to work specifically with our clients' leadership teams, and really align technology with the goals and the initiatives that they had. I think the industry picked up on a vCIO term initially as, a project engineer who was very technical. They were focused on tickets, and someone who could offer technology advice on how to configure computer equipment or server equipment, but really not someone who was focused at a business strategy level. And that was what I thought we did differently and continue to do differently, is that our vCIO team is dedicated in that capacity. I think that I've seen that term become more mainstream, especially over the last 5-6 years. But again, I see it in varying capacities. It's a term that is spread out for different reasons, and I think that the true intention of it, Jeff, like you were talking about in terms of it being a CIO resource, someone who's really there to be a strategist, is the true need for that role and what we provide. I think you asked me about what kind of organizations lean on a vCIO. Is that right? I want to make sure I'm.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute because I'd kicked my microphone earlier. Yeah, what types and sizes of businesses do you see that benefit or that are using vCIOs today?
I predominantly, and I think we have predominantly worked with over the years, small to medium businesses, ranging somewhere between, say 20 to 100, 200 seats, or employees, I should say. Really organizations that need IT and value IT at a strategiig level, realize that they want that working for them in an efficient way, but also understand that with one resource, they have that individual, no matter how talented they could be, just struggle with the capacity to manage an environment like that. And so a small to medium business, regardless of what industry they're in, because I think we work with organizations in just about every industry possible, they recognize that for managed IT, specifically the vCIO, not only are we achieving the ability to work with level 1 resources and project engineers when we need to, but the critical point there of how do we look forward? How do we design a plan or a roadmap that ensures we're aligning what our organization's goals are with how the technology is going to support that? So any sized organization, I think, that doesn't necessarily need the component or need the resources that an on-premise or staff-based IT group can provide, but they're just as, they just need, I'm a little tongue-tied here this morning, they need the same level of expertise and outcome that staff could provide, but they can do that at a much different cost factor when they're working with a vCIO and a managed IT services team.
Yeah, okay, good, thank you. Nick, kind of to follow up on that question, you've been, kind of a consistent resource and a consistent asset for our clients in the Milwaukee area, and have had the opportunity to move many clients from a traditional IT outsourced approach where, a guy shows up a couple times a week to go through a punch list, and they've converted to a managed services program with a vCIO as a component of that. What are the things that you see that that those clients identify as value components that they make the decision to move towards a more managed program with the vCIO, and what are some of the benefits that they receive over the time with that vCIO, kind of within the same vein of that last question to David.
Sure. And it's a very common problem, something that our sales team sees a lot when they're out in the field. Potential clients that are looking to make changes because they're lacking the vision and the guidance. So they've usually got a service provider that'll do a really good job of turning wrenches and fixing problems, but that's kind of where the traditional model of IT kind of falls short. They have the technical people that can do the work. However, they're focused on doing the work and not necessarily planning for the future or providing vision and guidance for the organization so they can move forward. I mean, really, as vCIOs, what we're looking to do, and I think David referenced this earlier, is we're looking to align technology with the organizational goals of the company, and we don't want to put things in because they're new and shiny or they're the latest craze that everyone's talking about. We want to put new technologies in because they solve a business case, they solve a business problem, they make someone's job more efficient, or they save the organization money, or increase profitability. One thing that I've seen over the years is increasingly companies, especially small and medium-sized businesses, are looking to use technology to give themselves a competitive advantage over the rest of the competition that they see in their industry, and differentiate themselves with that technology. It also goes hand in hand with making their operations more efficient as well. But to answer the question, the things that they're looking for is that strategic guidance. They're looking for someone with the experience and knowledge level to meet with them on a regular basis, to look at where they've been over the past few months and where they need to go in the next quarter or the next fiscal year, and what changes need to be made to help move their business forward with technology. And the traditional model of IT always kind of steered clear from that. They would say that they had that type of person, but it was usually a senior engineer, or it was, in some cases, the owner of the IT firm if it was a small company. Point is, that person was always wearing another hat. They weren't just the strategic visionist. They weren't just the vCIO. They also had to go on service calls, or they also had to run their own business. What's differentiated us over the years is we have vCIOs that are dedicated to that role. We're not out there turning wrenches any longer. We're just focused on being vCIOs for our clients and providing those services and strategic vision that the clients have lacked over the years.
Yeah, and you're just referring to other managed service providers, but I think the same is true in a lot of cases for organizations that have an individual as an IT person, IT manager, IT administrator, whatever the title is. They have to wear a lot of hats, and typically they're firefighting. They're putting out flames. They're putting out issues. They're running around. Typically, IT people are running around like their hair's on fire, managing what's in front of them to keep things moving. And it's difficult to find the time to get the head up, look at the horizon, and do some planning and look at strategy and understand what the business needs. They just run out of time. So I think a similar thing applies to both organizations that have outsourced, but maybe not with an organization that has that level of resources dedicated to strategy, as well as an insourced individual or even a team that doesn't have the time to consider it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been in that role. I've been in that position of being a working manager and running around with my hair on fire and having a small staff underneath me. But it's hard to balance all of that when you're in a medium-sized organization and you have all that responsibility. And it's a really good point. I mean, we've talked a lot about how we integrate with companies that don't have IT departments, but we also do integrate with companies that do have those resources. And we're not necessarily there to replace anyone or do anyone's job, but we're there to add to the brain trust. Like Jeff said, they're running around with their hair on fire, and it's hard to think creatively when you're in that mode. And it helps to have a third set of eyes and ideas to bring to the table, and just to provide a little bit more balanced approach.
Yeah, good. So I have the benefit of listening to really smart people say smart things, and then to summarize it. So to summarize, I think when is a vCIO a right thing, or what types and size of business? It's really, you're talking about a role and a resource that many mid to large organizations have. They can afford, they feel they have enough need for, and that's part of their C-suite. So it's organizations that number one, don't feel that they have enough work to afford or to find the money to have a CIO. And so they get to virtually use the CIO resources that we can provide, kind of a rent-a-CIO, but not just on a time and materials basis, somebody who becomes an adjunct executive to that leadership team and can help understand where the business wants to go and deploy the right technology to help them achieve that. Is that a fair summary?
I think so.
All right. So Nick, I'm going to give you a first crack at this next question. What types of things could an organization lean on from their vCIO? Is it day-to-day kind of tactical things? Is it sitting in board meetings and delivering kind of high-level, long-term investment items as it relates to technology? Consulting on how an acquisition could get integrated into the business? What are some of the things that a business that has a vCIO or is considering a vCIO resource, what kinds of things could they lean on?
Well, really think of the vCIO as a department head. And it varies a little bit from organization to organization depending on how we're engaged. But if we're working with a small or medium-sized business that does not have any local IT representation, they don't have that department with a manager, the vCIO role gets pretty broad. We become, like you said, if there's a large change going on, an acquisition, or integrating another company into yours, we're there from the IT perspective to help plan that integration, to help bring the right technologies to the forefront so that the organizations can come together smoothly with the goals that have been laid out by the leadership team. We're also getting involved in more mundane things like helping clients identify a new finance and accounting software package or a new phone system, even things that are really low on the totem pole, like finding a new internet service provider, because there's a lot of organizations out there that don't have internal IT departments, that don't have staff that are knowledgeable on these things, and they need that resource to be able to help guide them. Me personally, I've gotten involved in a number of different things for clients, from the acquisitions, from the different changes in line of business software, ERP rollouts or CRM packages. Really anything that involves technology is something that a client can reach out to their vCIO and get some guidance on. And in those scenarios where there is no local IT department and our team is also responsible for support, I put on the other department manager hat and be a point of escalation if there's things that need extra attention, or there's a certain situation going on that's maybe HR related, and we need to figure out a strategy of how to safely save information or disable an account for a user or something like that. So it really runs the gamut in terms of responsibilities. But what I tell my clients, if there's a question, it involves technology, please bring it to my attention and I will give you an answer, or do some research and find you an answer.
Yeah, great. David, kind of similar question. You've been doing this for a while. How have those conversations changed? When we first had the vCIO role and you first started to interact with some of our great clients that are still clients, I feel like the conversations and the topics and the priorities were different than they are today. How has that evolved?
Early on, when we started working with clients, I think they came to us and they asked us to provide them with services because they heard us give a different message about how we look at technology planning and how we help them think about it differently. But even once we started working with them, those initial meetings, people still had the mindset of, okay, we're going to talk about computers that need to be replaced. There's a ticket report, there's these standard things that I think people are accustomed to seeing. And even when we start working with clients, there was this period of time for an aha moment that says, wow, we're not here to go through tickets today. We're here to talk about the organization at a level that is focused on what are the goals for the year. Yes, we need to talk about budget. Yes, we need to talk about IT associated with that. But over time, people got accustomed to the fact that we want to come in and have a business strategy discussion and how technology fits into that. And I felt like in a couple of situations, there's one that I can think of in particular. It's a transportation company in Dane County, and we got everyone together, and the owners and the senior leaders, and had a great session talking about the business, thinking about where it needed to go and what resources we needed to support that. And they all kind of leaned back during this session about halfway through it and looked at each other and said, we've never had a discussion like this before. And so the practice of a technology planning session really turned into, how are we going to plan for the business over the next couple of years, and really gave them a new level of understanding, not only for technology, but for just themselves and their business. It was really a light bulb moment for them, that they needed to be thinking about strategy more often than they were. And I ended up facilitating a discussion that, I played a small role in, but really it was about getting the owners into the room and having them talk amongst themselves. So to answer your question, Jeff, I think the meetings have gone from, we're going to talk about IT, we need to figure out what we're going to spend on IT, to how can we facilitate a discussion about the strategic growth and direction of our organization, and what technology resources do we need to have involved to support those initiatives.
All right, good. Yeah, they're pretty interesting conversations. You guys have had the chance to get involved in them. So great story. Yeah, how often are you guys engaging with your clients? Is it a kind of, as they need you, they give a phone call? Is it a pre-scheduled kind of a things? What does that cadence look like? And maybe even give an example of what a best case scenario where you have a client that's really getting the most, you feel, out of their vCIO resource. David, maybe you can take that one. Oh, before I say that, as a quick reminder, we've got 7-8 minutes left on the podcast, or on the webinar. I keep thinking that I want this to be a podcast as well. Please throw your question into the Q&A box, and we'll try to get that inserted here before we end up. So David, what's the frequency? What's the cadence of conversation?
We would really like to have quarterly formal, what we call strategic business reviews. Quarterly is kind of our cadence, but it doesn't have to be quarterly. Some clients we need to meet with more frequently, and others maybe not as frequently. But we'd like to see those happen, so that at minimum we can sit down, pull out the roadmap for the year, make sure that the projects that we had lined up for are current, that the business's needs are still aligned with our plan, make any adjustments. And we also spend a couple minutes talking about operational components, but really those things are more flushed out during the just day-to-day, week-to-week operational interactions that we have. The COVID crisis this year, I think, has put a damper on some of our abilities to hold those regular meetings. And the clients I work with have been really good about engaging in virtual formats, and that's been great. I do miss, being out in my clients' offices, sitting at their tables and having that interaction. But, we're restoring that with virtual meetings and Microsoft Teams, and slowly but surely the doors are starting to open again. So cadence-wise, outside of the formal events, I have folks that regularly contact me for lots of things. Email is always there. Phone rings. I mean, I'm just here. This is my role. So when we're not in a formal meeting going through an agenda, there's always time and availability for ad hoc conversations as they come up.
Okay, good. Thank you. So I got a great question from the audience that I want to prepare you guys with. I'm going to come back and we'll end with this. But Nick, I'm going to ask you a question first. But before we get to this next one, think about, what are the one or two things strategically that you find yourself advising clients on right now or in the last month, more than maybe you had in the past, and one or two things that you think anybody listening should be considering asking their IT resource, if it's one of our vCIOs, asking about strategically over the next couple of years. Obviously, the world has pivoted and taken a different turn in the last 5 or 6 months, and how that impacts businesses and how they leverage technology, I think, will be an important piece. So put your pen to paper, and I'll come back to you in a second. Nick, the last question that I was going to ask you is, if a client signs up with us and there's a vCIO or they have vCIO services as part of that program, do they work with the same person, or do they rotate through a team of vCIOs?
The way the program is structured is they are assigned a vCIO during the pre-sales process. So they'll actually get to meet their vCIO before they've actually signed an agreement with Levity, and get to know that person. And then the vCIO will stay with that account through the duration of the contract, and be the main point of contact. There's been rare instances where vCIOs have changed, but it's usually pretty consistent across all of our markets that the same vCIO that starts the process usually stays with that client and sees them through the end. David and I used to talk years back about how we felt when we met with clients in those scenarios before contracts were signed, and we kind of felt like we were going through job interviews each time we were sitting down, right? So we were getting to know the client, they were getting to know us. We got to answer lots of questions about ourselves and the company, of course. But yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a mini job interview each time we sit down with a potential new client, and we get to know them and they get to know us. And in most all of the instances, it's a really rewarding thing to be with a client from before they were a client all the way through to when they've been with us for 5-6 years, and we've been able to help them grow or help them get to where they need to be.
Great, good. All right, David, I'm gonna throw it back to you. Couple things, and I'll give you about a minute and a half before I have Nick answer the same question. What are a couple of strategic things that you would advise a client to consider as they look at the horizon and kind of the change in the landscape?
I think first and foremost, cybersecurity is something that we need to be thinking very hard about. The risk mitigation that we need to put in place and just risk analysis associated with a cybersecurity event, what it means to my organization, what is the impact that it could have, and then also make sure that we've got incident planning in place so that if rubber hits the road on a cybersecurity event, we've got a plan in place that says who we need to call, what we need to do, who's going to make decisions. These are not times to scramble. These are times to pull out a plan and execute. So cybersecurity is definitely something I think we need to be focused on. The other I would put on that would be how to make sure that we're efficient with our resources right now while a lot of us are working remotely. And cybersecurity goes right next to that because we're distributing our technology outside of our traditionally controlled environments, i.e. our offices. And now with computers and technology connecting from anywhere, we've got to be thinking more intelligently about how we can protect our organization's assets, the electronic assets, data.
All right, good. So security to tighten everything up and how to get employees able to be as productive as possible from wherever they need to work.
Yes.
Great. Nick.
Well, I would say I would definitely have to second cybersecurity. That's probably the number one topic that I'm having with clients across the board. Whether they're bringing it to my attention or I'm bringing it to theirs, it should be forefront in everyone's mind right now. Most organizations probably aren't doing enough. They may think they are, but there's always ways that we can improve security and make environments more safe. The other thing that's been...
Did we lose Nick?
Can you hear me?
Oh, now you're back.
Oh, did you miss everything I just said?
I heard you say most organizations.
Oh.
I just got a note saying your internet connection is unstable, so maybe it's me. Keep going.
All right. The point that I made was that most organizations do need to take a fresh look at cybersecurity. I wanted to second David's point on that, and it's something that all organizations need to look at. Most places probably aren't doing enough. We should be doing a little bit more. The threat landscape is such these days that we really need to look in detail about what's been going on with security and how we can address it. But the other big topic that I've been dealing a lot with, especially in recent months, is team collaboration and communication. Some of this was definitely driven by the COVID crisis, but it was already in the works before it began. And really, a lot of organizations are looking for better and efficient ways to communicate and collaborate both internally and with their clients. And there's a lot of great tools out there today. David mentioned Microsoft Teams is one of the big ones as well. But I've seen a lot of organizations looking to reinvent a little bit the way that they communicate internally and also how they communicate externally with their clients, how they can make it a more collaborative experience for all parties involved and make it easy for folks to access information and to share information and communicate. That's really the two big things that I've seen a lot in recent years is the changes in cybersecurity and as well as team and customer and client collaboration.
All right, great. I think that those are important things, and those kind of really both of those, all of the topics that you guys mentioned are things that you can start down the path and put some practices in place, specifically with cybersecurity. But they are truly strategic, long-term initiatives that that are going to take some time to implement. They're going to take some time to get right. You're going to do them in phases, and so planning is a really important part of doing those well. So great ideas, and thanks. Well, I want to thank everyone for taking the time. It's we're a minute over, so apologize for that, but I think it was a great discussion. Thanks, Nick and David, for sharing your knowledge and joining me. We really enjoyed these coffee break series events, so thanks again for participating. You will be receiving your $5 Starbucks gift card for joining us. That should show up later this afternoon or on Monday, so that you can maybe use that the next time we have a coffee break series for your coffee. Thanks again for everyone for joining us. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next time.